So guys, what if Naruto was negelcted by everyone and had auspice by his side? Special movie. Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi, prankster, sage, and Jinchuriki to the fearsome Kyuubi no Kitsune, had to wonder how he found himself in the most absurd situations without even trying. From the day he had received his headband signifying his being a loyal shinobi in service to Konoha in the Land of Fire onwards, his life had been one harrowing event after another. First mission outside his village had him going up against a greedy little tyrant, his thugs, and the A-rank rogue shinobi he had hired. Of course, being the complete badass he helped to liberate the small nation of Wave Country from the iron grips of the shady business mogul Gado, and even got a huge-ass bridge named after him for his efforts. From there it was a downhill slope of battling one of the most evil rogue nin his village was responsible for, a crazed and murderous fellow Jinchuriki, being sent out to find the next Hokage, and eventually finding out that there was group of 9s ranked missing nin who wanted to liberate him and his fellow containers of their biju burdens. Of course, being the awesome shinobi he was, Naruto met all obstacles head-on and managed to save a few damsels in distress along the way. Now don't get Naruto wrong. He enjoyed getting to witness some of the pretty amazing stuff the world had to offer and meeting new people as much as the next guy. Heck, the fact that doing aforementioned activities usually led to him getting to fight some rather powerful opponents was a big plus for him, but he wasn't insane. He didn't enjoy knowing that his mere presence meant danger for his precious people. He didn't enjoy having to fight knowing he may well die if he made the slightest slip up, and he certainly didn't enjoy losing those close to him as the days went on. So when he had been forcibly thrust into this new world where there was no threat of Akatsuki, where he didn't have to be involved in the petty shinobi politics and lifestyle, he took it in stride and decided to treat it as a vacation. Being in constant overdrive was not good for one's health after all. Surprisingly, his tenant, grudging partner was not at all displeased by the change either, satisfied that he would no longer have to worry about being subjugated to any damn Uchihas or their cursed eyes. And so the two irrevocably bound partners used a few shinobi tricks and integrated themselves into the new society with little problem. Of course, it wasn't all fun and games, and Naruto was highly irritated when he found out that due to his age he was legally bound to attend a school of some sort, when an odd man with hair as red as one of his clansmen randomly offered him a spot as a student at the highly prestigious Kuo Academy. The blonde threw caution to the wind and agreed, not even bothering to ask who the man was or why he was apparently going around offering full scholarships to random strangers. Naruto was wary of the deal coming back to bite him in the ass, having not had such great luck with similar dealings in the past. A few months into the school year and after having gained a small following thanks to his roguish good looks and nothing of note happening, Naruto shrugged it off and decided he was just being overly paranoid. Looking down at the spear of condensed light energy that was currently now taking up the space where his lower abdomen and several organs used to be as the Kyuubi laughed uproariously, Naruto was cursing himself for being so careless. Really, by now he should have known that when he was involved, looking a gift horse in the mouth was probably the smarter thing to do. Turning his head, Naruto casually observed a scantily clad woman with black wings. Yup, those were definitely wings. As she proceeded to give one of Naruto's younger classmates, some perv named Issei, the same treatment she had just given him. Her job done, the very busty winged woman took to the sky and left the two teens there to bleed out to death. Naruto of course scoffed at the woman's arrogance and carelessness. It had taken him many years and some painful wounds to learn that leaving an enemy because they were defeated or looked to be dying would only come back to bite you in the ass. Rising from his kneeling position, Naruto gripped the shaft of the weapon and began to pulse the highly corrosive chakra of his partner into it, polluting the energy and making it turn a shade of angry orange. Within seconds the weapon collapsed into dust, eaten by the dominant source of energy. As the feeling of malice and hate began to drown the surrounding area, Naruto's body was engulfed in a layer of burning orange. The energy focused on his wound as it began to knit flesh back together and even regrow the organs that had been damaged. Uzumaki longevity powered by the strongest of the nine-tailed beasts was pretty great like that. Take that, Sasuke. Turning around, Naruto raised a brow upon seeing the curious eyes of fellow classmate Rias Gremory. The only reason he knew her name or anything about her was that she was first off possibly the most popular and sought-after student at Kuo, deemed one of the school's great beauties or something. Other than that, he was honestly just quite attracted to her vibrant red locks. Had nothing to do with her generous bust or anything, or the fact that she had accidentally given him an upskirt peek on his first day at Kuo. Nope. Damn hormones, you should be dead, Rias stated calmly, as if seeing someone heal from having a spear skewered through them was an everyday occurrence. Then again, where he was from, people walking on water and blowing out flames from their mouths was normal, so who was he to talk? Naruto shrugged before cockily replying, "Gonna take a lot more than some stupid spear to put me down, Tt Ibeo." Rias raised an elegant brow as she crossed her arms under chest, further accentuating her assets. Naruto could swear he heard the buttons of her already stretched blouse cry out in agony as they tried with all their might to contain the fleshy globes. Poor Jiraiya probably would have died a blood loss by now, Kami rest his perverted soul. "You're not human, are you, Uzumaki-san?" came the inevitable question. Naruto shrugged again. It was the truth as well, he really honestly had no clue. He had been born from a Jinchuriki mother and minutes later was forced to house the soul and power of the split portion of a primordial god that his mother originally had. Growing up and having that energy constantly filtered into his body probably didn't lend much to his humanity either. Then there was the whole becoming a sage thing. Even his fuzzy tenant doubted he was human anymore, or at least fully human. Surprised at the seeming lack of care the blonde had in regards his humanity, Rias was forced to remember how generally carefree and easygoing the teen was. He seemed to get along well with everyone and from what her friend Sona said, was rather intelligent in an unorthodox way. His grades weren't stellar by any means, average at best, but he managed to get said grades by barely applying himself. He seemed generally disinterested in school as a whole and was often caught either sleeping or pulling some prank, though the complexity of the pranks were telling of his intelligence. That, and he could never get the blame placed on him, something which frustrated Sona and the faculty to no end. They knew he was responsible, they just had no solid evidence to say so. A cough drew both of their attentions, and the two teens' sweat dropped in unison as they had completely forgotten about their schoolmate who was currently bleeding out all over the grass. Whoops. Naruto nervously chuckled to himself, especially ashamed considering the fact that he had originally gotten involved so he could save the brown-haired teen. Of course he wasn't exactly prepared for the winged woman to start throwing around spears of light, seeing as how he thought no one could use chakra these days. Caught unawares, he had ended up as a human kebab. Shaking her head, Rias kneeled down. "Do you want to live, Issei Hyodo?" His vision already fading as darkness encroached, the perverted teen managed a feeble nod. Rias acknowledged the nod and pulled out a black chess piece. A pawn, if Naruto recalled right. She then placed the piece on Issei's chest and chanted, "Then from this day forward you will live for my sake, be reborn as a pawn of the Gremory family." Naruto's interest was piqued when archaic seals of some sort formed around the pair and began to glow a red as vibrant as Rias' hair. Naruto quirked an eyebrow as the piece sunk into Issei's chest, and for a moment the blonde could sense that Issei's heart had stopped beating, meaning the teen had died. That quickly changed as the pervert's heart began to pump at a rate faster than should be humanly possible. The Jinchuriki narrowed his eyes as he could feel the younger teen's chakra die off and change, polluted by a much darker source of energy. As fast as it had come, the process stopped, Issei now unconscious but breathing, albeit shallowly. Yet another circle of seals and runes appeared, this time bringing with it another of Naruto's classmates, one Akeno Himejima, Kuo's other great beauty or some such. Naruto was never one for titles. The beauty smiled upon seeing a familiar mop of blonde hair, Naruto-kun. In turn the former shinobi grinned and offered a wave, "Ohio Akeno ne." The raven-haired beauty pouted, "Mo, what have I told you, Naruto-kun?" Naruto sighed, "Ohio Akeno-chan," unaware that her longtime friend and queen was well acquainted with Kuo's crowned prank king and goofball. Rias coughed into her hand to gain back their attention. "Ah, bucko, how can I help you?" Rias had to resist the very strong urge to face palm as Akeno completely disregarded the brown-haired teen with a hole in his stomach only feet from her. "Akeno, I need you to take Hyodo-kun back to his house and heal him, please." Looking down, the busty beauty finally took note of the unconscious form of Issei before placing hand to her mouth as she chuckles, "Ufufu, I didn't know you liked them, younger bucko." Rias shook her head in exasperation, "Just please do it, Akeno." Carelessly picking up Issei like he was a sack of potatoes, Akeno titled her head, "If I may ask, what will you be doing, bucko?" Rias turned her aquamarine eyes back to a certain blonde who was currently arguing with himself. Eyes widening, Rias noticed that there was now indeed two very much so identical whiskered teens, both glaring at the other. "That's bullshit. I went through the trouble of going to get the ramen, I should get a cut of it." "You're a clone." You're supposed to do what I say without question. The supposed clone turned and crossed its arms in a huff, grumbling, since when was this a tyranny? An exasperated Naruto casually flicked a kunai at the rebellious clone, causing it to go up in a poof of white smoke. Turning around, Naruto seemed unfazed that both Akeno and Rias were staring at him, each with their own shocked expressions etched into their faces. Coherent thought coming back to her, Rias decided to ask the obvious, so you can seemingly heal from any wound and clone yourself? Naruto shrugged as he slurped on the noodles the clone had fetched for him. The urge far too strong to override, Rias put palm to face. Akeno was meanwhile openly leering at her blonde friend, mind running rampant with ideas thanks to the knowledge that Naruto could heal from anything and clone himself. Era. Why didn't you tell me you could do all of that earlier, Naruto-kun? We could have been having fun together. Naruto froze mid-slurp as he stared into the hungry eyes of the raven-haired teen. Oh shit. It's another Anko. Run, Gaki. Run. Before Rias could stop him, the blonde teen ran off in terror, screaming about safe words and snake bites. What did you do, Akeno? Ufufu. I have no idea what you're talking about, bucko, though I must admit some of his ideas sounded lovely, don't you think? Having known Akeno for years now, Rias just shook her head and sighed. Take Hyodo-kun home, Akeno, and please don't tease the poor boy. Insulted that her friend and king would think so lowly of her, Akeno pouted. I have standards, bucko. Besides, Naruto-kun is so much more fun to tease. Ufu. With her piece said, Rias' queen activated their transportation seal and left the scene. Sighing to herself, Rias decided that she would have to wait till tomorrow to not only get her new pawn integrated into the peerage, but also to see how capable her blonde classmate was and how much he knew in regards to the supernatural world. Maybe even see if he was willing to join her peerage. Math class was boring, plain and simple. He knew very well how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. What use did he have for the quadratic equation? When would he ever need to know how to plot a point on a graph? Briefly he wondered if this was how Shikamaru felt back in their academy days. Deciding to take a page from the book of said narcoleptic genius, Naruto folded his arms and placed his head atop them, his breathing becoming shallow as the nap took a hold of him. A few desks to his right, Akeno giggled quietly as she witnessed the goofball casually begin to sleep right in the middle of class. Curious as to why her friend and queen was laughing, Rias smiled and shook her head in amusement at seeing the snoozing form of Naruto. Minutes later, the blonde was roused from his dreams of ramen by a hand gently shaking his shoulder, peeking a bleary sapphire eye open. Naruto was only slightly surprised to see both Akeno and Rias standing in front of him, rising with a stretch and a yawn. The teen regarded the two beauties with a questioning gaze. I was wondering if you would come with us to our club room so we can talk about yesterday, Rias stated, unknowingly garnering the attention of the other students who were milling about. Seeing the two most beautiful females of Kuo talking to the handsome prank king had the rumor mill already spinning. Hearing Rias, someone who rarely took the time to talk to anybody outside of her own circle, casually ask the resident goofball to possibly join her club was even more juicy. Many girls cried out in despair at losing the chance to snag Naruto for themselves while the males joined them, knowing they had no chance against the blonde who could so easily make friends with anybody. Ignorant of his fellow students' plight, Naruto shrugged and rose from his seat, following behind Rias. The rest of the school was sent into murmurs as they witnessed Naruto animatedly talking to Akeno, who was giggling at whatever it was he was telling her while Rias looked to be smiling in amusement. Arriving at the club room, Naruto raised a brow at the rather odd atmosphere, candles serving as the only light source, other than the sunlight that peeked in through the thick curtains, and well-furnished couches gave the room a rather creepy vibe. Then again, Rias had said it was the occult research club. Cammy, he hoped there wasn't going to be any ghosts involved. I'll explain everything as soon as the others get here. In the meantime, make yourself at home, Rias casually stated as she made her way to the back of the room where there was a shower. Wait, was she stripping? Naruto quickly averted his eyes with a furious blush staining his whiskered cheeks. The hell are you doing? Rias' voice came over the sound of rushing water. I didn't have the time to shower as I was busy with everything last night, so I am doing it now. Huffing, Naruto decided to ignore the fact that there was a rather attractive female showering in the same room, and instead turned to see Akeno walking up to him with a tray in her hands. Knowing how refreshing her tea was, Naruto was all too happy to take a cup and allow himself to sink into the comfy couch he was seated on. Any chance you can just tell me what's going on? Naruto asked. Akeno gave her usual smile. Era, always so impatient Naruto-kun. Just have a little more patience and Bucko will answer your questions. The hyperactive blonde sighed. I figured you were gonna say that. Worth a shot. Thankfully salvation came in the form of a petite silver-haired girl dressed in the standard Kuo Academy uniform. For a moment, the two stared at each other with blank faces, Akeno and a freshly showered Rias wondering how their younger friend would react to Naruto. Raising a hand, the younger teen pointed at the older teen's cheeks and blandly said, Kitsune. Deciding to mess with those in the room, Naruto channeled a small portion of his partner's chakra, enough to thicken his whiskers, sharpen his fangs, and turn his eyes into the crimson slits of the Kyuubi, and grinned, Neko. The other three were highly shocked to hear that in the span of a few seconds, Naruto had so easily figured out a secret they all kept rather guarded. Then again, if his new features and the younger girl's word was anything to go by, then it wasn't too far of a stretch to understand how he did it. Kitsune were said to be masters of illusions and trickery, and with their enhanced senses, it would be nigh impossible to fool one. Kaneko-chan has answered my question, but if that's the case then why hasn't she or anyone else been able to tell until now? Kitsune illusion? Rias pondered to herself. Kaneko was however shocked for an entirely different reason. She had no problems with Kitsune or other yokai in general, but now that she was so close to him, she could tell that Naruto possessed absolutely massive reserves of chakra. To make sure, she had used the senses she was gifted with thanks to being a Nekosho, and was dumbfounded to feel how thick and overwhelming his chakra was. It was even worse when she realized that there was the distinct feeling of two other chakras perfectly mingling with Naruto's own. One she recognized far too easily. It was the chakra of nature, the chakra of a senjutsu user. The other was just as shocking. She couldn't recognize what exactly it was, but as she searched it out, Kaneko was overwhelmed by the feelings of pure hatred and malice that threatened to suffocate her. Shaking herself from her reverie, the young teen kept a wary eye on Naruto and sat away from him, her body tense and ready to jump into action. It was this atmosphere that the effeminate Kiba and perverted Issei walked into. Naruto regarded the two males with a raised brow before carelessly shrugging and going back to enjoying his tea. He was however caught off guard as Rias began to explain to Issei what she had done to him, how she had essentially allowed him to die only to be reborn as a devil in service to her. The ensuing explanation about fallen angels, and the fact that all the other religious pantheons and mythical creatures were very much so real threw even Naruto for a loop. When everyone in the room suddenly grew wings, a shocked Issei included, Naruto childishly complained to his Biju partner about the unfairness of the world. Wait. What about Naruto-senpai? Is he a devil too? Issei asked as everyone took note of said blonde muttering to himself about people with super cool wings. Allowing her wings to retract, Rias shook her head. Uzumaki-kun is not a devil, but a yukai, a kitsune if I am not wrong. Issei put fist to palm as if he had just solved a great mystery. That explains the whiskers. Eyebrow twitching as the others began to chat about his foxy features as if he wasn't sitting in the same room as them. Naruto called out, Oi! I am no yukai. And I am not a kitsune either, I think. Confused glances were his answer. Era. Then what are you Naruto-kun? Akeno asked curiously. Naruto scratched his head in thought. I am honestly not 100% sure. The, circumstances of my birth make me doubt I am fully human so I can't really be sure. Seeing Rias about to interject, Naruto continued, but I am sure that I am a shinobi. You mean like those guys in pajamas that run around going nin? Issei asked as he mimicked what he had seen in some manga. Naruto immediately smacked him upside the head. No you baka. I guess you could say we were more like mercenaries. If you needed anything from help moving your stuff to having some high-ranking official assassinated or information on a political opponent, we'd do it, for the right price. That raised more than one brow. To think that the prank-happy blonde who was more than often seen with a grin on his face was actually someone who was capable of slitting someone's throat before they even knew what hit them was more than surprising. Then again it did answer the question of how he was able to so easily get away with his pranks and never get caught. You use chakra, Kaneko stated blandly. Those more versed in the knowledge of the supernatural, being Rias, Akeno, and Kiba, were even more surprised to hear that there were few races who could use chakra, and those that could were known for feats that could even put some devil magic to shame. Naruto shrugged. Well yeah. Every shinobi does, except for one guy the first knew, something having to do with a birth defect, but he was still fast and strong enough to beat down most people. The blonde was torn from his memories of bushy eyebrows and shoutings about the flames of youth. Ria's coughing into her hand tore him from that trip down memory lane though. Anyways, knowing how to use chakra was pretty much basic knowledge where I am from. Rias was highly curious as to where Naruto was from, as no one was really sure. No had ever seen the blonde with any family members, nor did he really talk about any. Still there were more pressing matters, like informing Issei of his new duties as a resurrected devil of her peerage. Of course this also served a dual purpose, and was a great segue for finally revealing the real reason she had brought Naruto to the meeting. Turning from the rest of her peerage, Rias regarded Naruto with a confident gaze and a smile. So now that you know all this, I would like to formally ask if you'd like to join my peerage as well, Uzumaki-kun. No thanks, perfect. I am thinking you'd be perfect as a knight or rook, but bishop could work seeing as you can use chakra. Bucko? Akano interrupted, seeing her friend's curious gaze. The Ravenet continued, Naruto-kun declined your offer. Everyone could see the proverbial gears turning in the redhead's mind as Naruto's reply finally clicked. But, why not? The pure blood devil asked, bewildered to hear that someone, anyone, would turn her down, her Rias Gremory, possibly the most sought-after and idolized student at Kuo. On top of that, she was also the heiress to one of the last remaining pure blood devil families, and as much as she didn't exactly enjoy it, that title usually afforded her sway with almost anyone, meaning she usually got what she wanted without much complaint. Rejection, in any form, was something Rias was not exactly used to. Naruto, not really caring for titles or any such petty things, shrugged, not a fan of taking orders from someone else. Besides that, the whole having to fulfill contracts thing is way too similar to D-rank missions, and I had enough of those for one lifetime, thank you very much. Owlishly blinking, Rias was still struggling to come to terms with the fact she was being told no, but you could become a devil, become even stronger than you are now, with enough time you could even move up in rank and make your own peerage. Naruto shrugged his shoulders as he rose from his seat and folded his arms behind his head. If I need to get stronger, I'll just up my training or something, and I was never a fan of all that high society bull crap. It was cool hanging with you guys, Yane. No one moved a muscle as the blonde waltzed out the door, being just as shocked as their king that someone had so casually turned down an offer to become a devil under Rias Gremory no less. Ufufu. Naruto-kun sure is an interesting one. Later that night, an exhausted Issei Hyodo was making his way home, mentally going over everything that had happened within the past 2 days. First he finally gets himself a cute girlfriend, only for said girl to turn into what he now knew to be a fallen angel who had proceeded to kill him with some spear of light. He had died. Of course, waking up this morning to find himself very much so alive and no one remembering who Yuma was had driven him to the brink of insanity. The day only great stranger when he was approached by Prince of Kuo, one Kiba Yuto. If that wasn't weird enough, he was taken by the Bishonen to the old school building where he was then told by Rias Gremory that she had resurrected him as a devil in service to her. The beauty then went on to explain how devils, angels, fallen angels, and even demons were very much so real and that he was now involved in that world. Honestly, it was all too much to take in. The young teen was pulled from his musings when he accidentally bumped into a figure garbed in a trench coat and wearing a fedora. Turning, Issei bowed to the figure, "Gomenasai, I wasn't looking where I was going." The figure scoffed, "TCH, of course you devils have no manners." Issei's eyes widened, shocked that he had apparently bumped into someone who knew of his new status. Titling his head up to reveal the face of an older male, the trench coat wearing figure continued, "But what's this? No master? No friends? Well, if it isn't just my luck, I seem to have bumped into a little stray." Grinning madly, the man held up his hand, a blue spear of light forming. "Now don't move. I, Donasek, will try and make this as painless as possible." Seeing the now familiar weapon of light energy, Issei could do nothing but panic, falling on his ass and merely staring at the quickly approaching weapon. "No. No. Not again." Issei screamed in his head. His pleas were answered, in the form of a shoe suddenly smashing into the older man's face, sending him tumbling away. "Geez, and I thought I was a trouble magnet." Looking up, Issei breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing the familiar sunny blonde locks of his older schoolmate, Naruto-senpai. "I've never been so happy to see you." Looking at the crying brunette, Naruto sighed. If I didn't know you were the second biggest pervert I've ever met, I'd be worried about what you meant by that. Naruto dodged aside a second later, narrowly dodging a spear of light that would have otherwise pierced straight through his skull. He was pretty confident in his healing ability, but didn't really feel like testing to see if it could heal his brain. Spitting out a glob of blood, the now hatless Donasek glared. So the stray has a friend after all. No matter, you can die, Toge. The fallen angel was harshly interrupted when Naruto's fist plowed into his face, sending him into a nearby tree with enough force to splinter it. Yeah, I am gonna kill you. You don't know who you're messing with, and all that. I've heard it all at least a dozen times. Can't you evil villain people come up with something original? Says the idiot who ran around shouting believe it, at the top of his lungs for a few years, the Kyuubi mocked. Quiet you. Tuning out the sounds of his tenants' laughter. Naruto was surprised to see the fallen angel actually getting up. He was far from being on par with Tsunade or even Sakura, but even he knew he was capable of throwing some rather nasty punches. With a sigh, the blonde casually stepped to the side and stretched out his hand, easily catching the spear of light that had been thrown at him. Slightly curious, the Jinchuriki began to inspect the energy weapon, wondering how it maintained its shape. Meanwhile, both Issei and Donasek were gaping in surprise as the blonde poked and prodded the light spear like a child with a new toy. Their jaws dropped further when Naruto carelessly tossed the spear away like it wasn't a dangerous weapon. Before anyone else could make a move, familiar to Naruto and Issei, a ray of seals and runes appeared. From the glowing circle came a stern-faced Rias Gremory. Seeing Naruto, the beauty raises a brow before turning to address the still kneeling fallen. As the heiress to the Gremory house and protector of this territory, I hope you didn't think I'd allow you to harm one of my cute little servants. Sneering, the fallen angel rose to his feet and began to dust himself off. If I were you, I'd make sure your little pets were kept on a tighter leash. Wouldn't want something to accidentally happen to them. In response, the young devil narrowed her eyes and began to call on the power that had made her brother a force to be reckoned with, a power they inherited from their mother. You would do well not to threaten me or my servants, or I'll show you why we of the Gremory clan are not to be taken lightly. Naruto mentally whistled in appreciation upon feeling the violent power that his classmate was so easily commanding and using to intimidate her foe. Though there wasn't a lot of it, what was there was dense and prominent enough to put those in the area on their toes. Whatever it was powerful, and Rias apparently knew how to use it to some extent. I say it's pathetic. Even that insane idiot Shukaku was far more intimidating than some foolish little girl and her fancy little light show, Kurama groused. Sweat dropping, Naruto simply retorted, yeah, but you and the other Biju are pretty much power incarnate. I doubt even these devils or whatever could really be put on the same level as you guys. Bah, excuses, wake me up when something actually interesting happens. Still, Naruto had to admit his Biju was right. Sure, now that he could feel Rias actively drawing on whatever energy devils used. While impressive from an outside-looking point of view, it wasn't really all that impressive. Then again, after going against Nagato and his Rinnegan that had decimated the literal entirety of Konoha in a single move, he was pretty hard to impress. All in all, going by his standards, Naruto had to say that the red-haired beauty was around Chunin, maybe low Junin level. However, Donasek seemed to actually be wary of whatever power Rias was using and scoffed before using his blackened angel wings to flee the area. Ignoring Issei, Rias turned curious blue-green eyes to Naruto. What are you doing here, Uzumaki-kun? In turn, the Jinchuriki shrugged. Just happened to be in the area when I saw idiot over there about to get skewered again. Since I goofed up the first time, I figured I'd give it a shot again. Issei sat on the ground, bemoaning the way not only Naruto was addressing him, but the fact that Rias was pretty much ignoring his existence. It was actually pretty sad to see the young pervert all but bawling his eyes out. Was that a snot bubble? Ew. Smiling, Rias asked, does this mean you've changed your mind and want to join my peerage? Naruto shook his head. Nope, felt I owed it to the perv and all. Seeing the downtrodden look on his classmate's flawless face, the blonde was internally punching himself. With a sigh, the teenage shinobi caved. But I will help you guys out if you need it. After all, I guess we're friends now, right? Looking at the simultaneously cheesy, yet endearing smile plastered across his whiskered cheeks, Rias could do nothing but flash her own. Right, we're friends now. It's a step, I guess. Besides, this way I can have more chances to convince him to join me, the voluptuous redhead declared to herself. One way or another, Uzumaki Naruto would join her peerage or she wasn't Rias Gremory. Unbeknownst to her, her friendship with Naruto Uzumaki would drastically alter events that had yet to happen. Whether those changes were good or bad, was a matter of perspective. The one undeniable fact in this situation though was that life for Rias and those around the blonde Jinchuriki had just gotten a whole lot more interesting. And welcome to the end of the chapter. Enjoyed it? Want more? Have questions? Comments? Have a genuine critique or thought in how I can better improve? Leave a review. Want something answered ASAP? Shoot me a PM. Don't like me? Hate my style of writing? You can do either of the former, but as previously stated, I will share it with my friends and we will all laugh and giggle derisively at your tiny internet penis. Now I know I said Naruto won't be God mode, but allow me to clarify, as of right now, in this very beginning of the story, he won't be close to being on the level of the Mao or any other such powerful being. However, Naruto is host to a Biju which in the Naruto verse and in my mind, are just split pieces of a primordial god. Not only that, he is also the transmigrant of one of the sons of the Rakudo Sennin, a god-tier being. What's that all add up to? Naruto does indeed have the lineage and genetics necessary to reach and even surpass the Mao and other such powerhouses. As such, he will eventually grow to reach that level. I don't want to spend so much time on power levels, as I find it all rather stupid. I won't throw math, science, or whatever at you, because that's not what the characters are about. Naruto's strength has always been his durability, never say die attitude, and sheer stubbornness. He is a character who grows stronger out of a drive to better himself and be able to better protect his precious people. You cannot quantify the will to fight and defy the status quo with numbers or anything. That all said, the harem will change and grow. The for sure members as of now are Rias, Akeno, and Graphia, Kuroka and others may be added. Who will be added will ultimately be decided by myself. If you want to send me a message why a certain girl would logically work well with Naruto, feel free. I am willing to hear you out and talk it out. In this case, only PMS. I don't want the reviews section flooded with calls for certain females to be added. It just adds clutter and makes any significant review mark one reach feel somewhat hollow when more than half of them are Ad Gabriel. Xenovia should be in the harem. What about Kaneko? Rias Gremory was currently at her wit's end, the cause of her frustration. The blonde ball of sunshine named Naruto Uzumaki. The past week of attempts to get the whiskered teen to join her peerage had been an odd mess of successes and failures. Successes in that she and the other members of her peerage were actually getting to know the blonde teen, though Akeno seemed to have a rather large head start on that end. The failures lay with the fact that no matter how much she sweetened the deal, Naruto would still turn down her offers of joining her as an official member of her peerage. If Rias had to be honest with herself though, that wasn't even the most frustrating part of it all. The more she interacted with the whiskered prankster, the harder it was for her to keep trying to get him to join her. Naruto Uzumaki was a free spirit who did what he felt was right. Damn the consequences. That much had become blatantly obvious to her after only a few days of talking with him, and it was something she admired. His carefree attitude and utter lack of disregard towards social norms and stupid high-class rules was refreshing for her. Being the heiress of a highly regarded devil family had made Rias accustomed to being treated like she was a doll, not a living, breathing being with thoughts and feelings. The last few years at Kuo weren't really different, even in the human world where people had no clue that she may as well be royalty. Her beauty and intelligence had people placing her upon a pedestal. Naruto ignored all of that. He didn't treat her as the Gremory heiress or as one of Kuo's great beauties. He treated her like she was just another one of his friends, like she was just Rias Gremory. Therein lay the source of her frustrations. If she eventually did somehow convince Naruto to join her, as unlikely as that seemed, she would essentially be putting a collar around his neck and tying him down to her. She would be stripping him of his freedom, and she feared he may end up treating her like everyone else did. It was all so confusing. Era. Fox got your tongue, bucko? Sighing, Rias turned to regard her best friend. You're not too far off, Akeno. Having intended to simply tease her king and friend as she normally did, Akeno was slightly surprised when said redhead actually admitted to thinking about a certain whiskered teen. Something the matter, Rias? I just don't know what to do. Should I really keep pestering Uzumaki-kun to join us? He'd make a powerful and useful ally, but at what cost? Akeno hummed in thought. Didn't you say that Naruto-kun promised to help you if you needed it, that he said you were friends? Raising a brow at the seemingly random question, Rias nodded her head. Yeah. He said as much after that little skirmish with the fallen angel. In return, a smile broke out across Akino's face. Then you don't need to worry. Naruto-kun never goes back on his word and will do anything for a friend, even if you don't ask him to. It's just who he is. Rias was admittedly a little surprised to hear the conviction Akino had poured into that single statement and openly said as much. I would have expected Uzumaki-kun to say something like that, not you Akino. Ufufu. Naruto-kun seems to be rubbing off on me, now if only he would let me rub him off. The Gremory heiress could only sweat drop as she could visibly see Akino's mind slip right into the proverbial gutter. Elsewhere, a certain blonde sneezed for what seemed to be the umpteenth time in a row. Rubbing the underside of his nose, the whiskered teen apologized, "Gomenasai." The older man seated across from him simply laughed, "No problem at all, but, you know that when you sneeze like that, it means someone is talking about you." Naruto in turn shrugged, once more concentrating on the task at hand. Meh, never was one for superstitions and all that. The man once again laughed, "I find that funny coming from the kid who's afraid of ghosts." "Oi. That's no laughing matter, ghosts are creepy all right." "How so?" "You're pretty strong and the, as you put it, fuzzy bastard in my gut, is far stronger than any ghost I've ever met," the mystery man replied. Pouting, Naruto answered, "'Cause they are. You can't hit 'em or anything, but they can sure as hell mess with you. It's not fair and it's scary." Laughing at his companion's childish way of seeing the world, the mystery man stated, "Shinobi in container to an unbelievably powerful spirit, and yet he's afraid of ghosts. Oh, how far will this generation fall?" Deciding to ignore the jab at his character, Naruto instead turned to look at the simple stick he had been holding in his hands for the past half hour. "Okay. This is getting boring. Why are there no fish biting?" "Fish? This is a small pond, there's no fish in here." "You mean to tell me that I've been sitting here with you for a half hour with a fishing pole when there aren't even any fish here?" "Yup. Baka." The mystery man began to run, Naruto comically chasing after him brandishing his fishing rod like a spear. "Come back here and take your beating like a man, Azazel." The now named Azazel simply continued to run and laugh, keeping a respectable distance between himself and his young friend. Minutes later, Azazel, now sporting a rather large bump on his head, and a grinning Naruto seated themselves back on the edge of the pond. For a minute, neither spoke, the younger teen reveling in his victory and the elder male seemingly lost in his own thoughts. "Hey Gaki. You like pulling pranks, right?" Raising a brow, Naruto turned to regard the older man. "Yeah, what of it?" A mischievous grin stretched across Azazel's face. "Well, it seems that a few of my fellow fallen have decided to go outside of my orders and take certain matters into their own hands. It'd be a shame if someone interfered with those plans." "You're talking to Uzumaki Naruto. Foiling evil master plans is what I do for fun," Naruto exclaimed, a vulpine grin on his whiskered cheeks. Elsewhere, a man with features eerily similar to that of an elf in long raven black hair, shivered, feeling as if some unknown force had suddenly set its eyes on him and said force would bring all of his decades of planning to ruin. Of course that couldn't be the case, seeing as he was one of the most powerful fallen angels and had spent decades planning everything. His plan was foolproof and nothing could derail it, right? "So you've added Hyodo Issei to your peerage after all." "Hi, he has been an interesting addition to the group," Rias replied unsurely, her eyes still focused on the chessboard before her. Raising a brow at her longtime friend's tone, Sona Citri, king of her own peerage and heiress to an equally revered and powerful clan of devils, moved her knight piece, taking out a pawn in the process. "Interesting. I thought adding another sacred gear user into your peerage would only be beneficial?" Moving a rook to claim one of the bespectacled teen's bishops, the crimson-haired beauty continued, "It would be, however there are some complications to that." Seeing the questioning look her fellow heiress was sending her, Rias elaborated, "It seems that Hyodo-kun is currently unable to fully unlock his sacred gear. Despite our best attempts, it doesn't help that he seems to have a one-track mind." "Ah, you mean his obsession with anything having to do with the female body. I believe I told you that you would encounter such a problem should you choose to recruit him," Sona replied in her usual no-nonsense tone. Taking a moment to take stock of her current position in their chess match, Rias nodded, "You did. But his obsession is also a pretty good motivator if nothing else." Knowing her friend quite well, Sona asked, "I hope you don't mean what I think you do. After all, I know how eager you are to get out of your predicament, but I'd hope you wouldn't stoop so low." Frowning at the reminder of a rather obtuse thorn in her side, Rias replied. As desperate as I am to rid myself of that blasted contract. No. Hyodo-kun has some admirable traits, I'll admit, but I only care for him like I do the other members of my peerage. Nodding her head, Sona then asked another question that had become the rather hot topic amidst the students of Kuo. I see. And what about a certain blonde troublemaker? Word is that you and your peerage have become rather close with him in recent days. Have you managed to claim him as well? Internally laughing at seeing the look of frustration that spread across her childhood friend's face at the mention of a certain whiskered chakra user, Rias shook her head. Sadly, I haven't. Uzumaki-kun remains rather adamant about not joining me, no matter how I spin it. Quirking an eyebrow, Sona became a little more interested in the conversation. After all, her friend had the astonishing luck of having been able to add all those she wished to her peerage. In fact, if she was being honest, Sona was a little jealous of just how easy Rias had it when it came to claiming several interesting and powerful pieces and adding them to her peerage. It was a little unfair. Besides that, she wasn't blind to the fact that Rias was very attractive, with a figure many men and women would kill to be close to hear that somebody, anybody, had turned down an offer at not only being able to get closer to someone like Rias but to also gain the many benefits of becoming a devil, even a reincarnated one, was unusual, especially if that someone was human. He turned you down. That's unusual for a human, Sona commented, attempting to seem uninterested. Rias actually perked up, seemingly a little more excited. That's right. Uzumaki-kun doesn't seem to be human like we first thought. For the first time, Sona actually tore her eyes away from the chessboard, showing just how surprised she was by the revelation. Really? I'll admit it makes sense, but how could he have fooled us all? He doesn't feel like a devil or angel, not even a yukai. The Gremory heiress shrugged. Kaneko-chan said he smelled like a kitsune, but Uzumaki-kun said he wasn't a kitsune yukai. In fact, he said he's not even sure of what he exactly is himself. The chess match all but forgotten, Sona stood to her feet, a ponderous look on her face. So all we have to go off is that he smells like a kitsune. Maybe he's a half-demon and doesn't know it. Sitting back and crossing one smooth alabaster leg over the other, Rias shrugged. Possibly, though I've never heard of a kitsune being able to make solid copies of itself or shrug off being skewered by a spear of light energy and heal in a matter of seconds. Now Sona was completely invested in the topic. Sure, there were several races and creatures who had an accelerated rate of healing, devils being one of them. However, to be able to come back from being pierced by a light spear, even a weak one, in a matter of seconds was unheard of. Then there was the apparent ability to make copies of himself that could interact with the world. It wasn't unusual by any means, but it also wasn't exactly the most common of abilities either. What made the whole situation even stranger was that it was a human who was capable of all this. It should be possible. Only those select few among mankind who were chosen to be sacred gear users should be capable of such feats, and Naruto Uzumaki was most certainly not a holder of such a powerful artifact. Otherwise he would have registered on her radar much sooner. The distinct feel of someone who carried such a unique and powerful tool like a sacred gear was hard to miss, even if the item itself was asleep, like in the case of Issei Hyodo. That is odd to say the least, Sona commented, still racking her brain for anything that could possibly explain how Naruto was capable of the things he was. Rias, still finding some childish joy at seeing her friend and fellow king so confused, feigned a sigh. He did say something about chakra. A chakra user. I wasn't aware that chakra was that potent of a power source, Sona commented, more so to herself as she mentally went over all she knew about the energy and those who used it. Admittedly, that wasn't a lot. There were very few notable chakra users, and so there was very little knowledge about it floating around. Rias, not as invested as her friend, crossed her arms and relaxed in her seat, nor was I. However, according to Uzumaki-kun, his home village was filled with them and the use of it was even taught to young children. Taking her seat, Sona copied her crimson-haired friend's posture. A village teeming with chakra users who could possibly pull off feats similar to Uzumaki-san. How has word about such a place not spread? I am sure there are plenty of devils who'd love to add someone like that into their peerage. Turning her attention back to their previously forgotten chess match, the Gremory heiress moved a knight piece, capturing one of Sona's pawns. Uzumaki-kun said that it wasn't just a village of chakra users. More to the point is that they called themselves shinobi. According to him, they would do anything, for the right price, menial chores, assassination of high-ranking government officials, or even sabotage of another nation. They would do it all. Making a noncommittal noise of acknowledgement as she analyzed the board, Sona nodded. I see, it wouldn't be good for business if the location of their home village was disclosed, right? Rias only nodded her head in agreement, her attention now focused back on the chessboard between them. A silent peace settled between the two kings, each one running through dozens of plans and maneuvers in an attempt to outwit the other. So this is what you meant when you said they get really into it. Having been so engrossed in their chess game, the two devils were greatly surprised when their peace was shattered by that single sentence. Spinning around, the two were ready to interrogate whoever had managed to sneak past their senses, only for Rias to immediately calm down and smile while Sona frowned. Sitting crossed-legged on the windowsill with his chin on his palm, Naruto grinned and tossed a lazy wave as a greeting. From behind the blonde, a very familiar giggle came, followed by an equally familiar head of ebony locks. Ufufu. I told you Naruto-kun, Bucko and Sona can be rather competitive. Seeing Akeno remove herself from Naruto's back and swing into the room, leaving the blonde to sit on the sill, Rias only raised a brow, more than used to the oddity that was Naruto Uzumaki by now. So how exactly did you manage to get up to the window without either of us noticing? Tossing his arms behind his head and closing his eyes, the spiky-haired blonde shrugged the wall. While Rias shook her head, Sona began to massage the bridge of her nose, already feeling a headache coming on. And how did you use the wall to get up to a window on the second floor of this building? Seeing as how it wasn't exactly a secret that he could use chakra, the Uzumaki Jinchuriki hopped off the windowsill and placed his right foot on the wall of the room. To the surprise of Rias and Sona, the left foot soon followed in. With what seemed to be zero effort at all, Naruto scaled the wall as easily as one would walk on a sidewalk. Soon, the two pure blood devils were staring as Naruto casually waved at them from the ceiling. Before the questions could even come, Naruto answered, chakra. Chuckling at the shocked looks of the two heiresses, Akeno commented, Naruto-kun is full of surprises, isn't he, Bucko? Shaking her head, Sona sighed, I want to ask, but I fear the answer. Turning to Rias, the bespectacled devil nodded her head. It was good to catch up. I'll see you soon. Stopping the flow of chakra to his feet, Naruto fell from the ceiling, landing in a crouch, and joined in Rias and Akeno in waving a goodbye. As soon as the door closed, Naruto turned to the two. Who was that? Akeno giggled as usual while Rias shook her head before seating herself behind her desk. That was Sona Citri, a fellow devil and king of her own peerage. She is also one of my oldest friends. Wait. I thought you and your family were in charge of this area or something? Naruto asked, scratching his head in confusion. We are, however, due to our family's close ties, this area is actually under both Gremory and Citri jurisdiction, so Sona and I share the responsibility, Rias explained. Oh. So she's from another one of those Pillar Clan things? Naruto questioned. Taking a cup of tea from her queen, the Gremory heiress nodded. Yes, the Citri are another one of the remaining 72 pillars. Declining a cup of tea from Akeno, much to the curiosity of the two female devils, Naruto made his way back to the window. Well, thanks for the info. I got some stuff to take care, so I'll see you guys tomorrow, Yane. With a two-finger salute, the blonde shinobi leapt out the window, disappearing from the sight of the room's remaining occupants. Era, Naruto-kun usually never turns down my tea, Akeno commented, a finger to her chin as she pondered on what could have possibly caused the change. Taking a sip from her own cup, Rias raised a brow. You yourself always say he is unpredictable. Dramatically sighing, Akeno nodded. Do you think he's seeing another girl, Bucko? Caught off guard by the question, and the implications it entailed, Rias hurriedly added, I wasn't aware you two were dating. Giggling into her hand, Akeno shook her head. Ufufu, we're not, but a girl can dream, right? Although I don't know what I'd do with myself if my little ball of sunshine were to fall into the grips of some harlot. Deciding she was better off not asking. Knowing her queen's quirks, Rias simply turned her attention to the small stack of papers that sat on her desk. Oh, the joys of being an heiress. Issei couldn't help but to smile as he made his way through school. While he had initially been late to wake up and been in a rush to make it on time, his abrupt meeting with an adorably innocent and cute nun by the name of Asia had turned that all upside down. Heck, for once his mind wasn't completely absorbed by the glory that were Opie. It was only like 80% of his thought process. That was like a personal best or something, right? What's got you all sunshine and rainbows, Arrow Baka? Meet a cute girl who didn't run from you. Yelping in surprise, the brunette teen turned around to find the grinning form of Naruto Uzumaki snickering behind him. Refusing to allow anyone to ruin his good mood, Issei turned on his foot and continued his way through Kuo's campus, something like that. Raising a brow at the lack of a reaction, Naruto shrugged and continued walking with the younger teen. So what's her name? Smiling at the memory of the cheery blonde he had met, Issei answered, Asia, Asia Argento. She's a nun from Europe and she has this really cool ability that lets her heal anyone. Must be the same girl Azazel said that group of fallen were planning on killing, Naruto internally mused. Deciding it best to keep that piece of knowledge to himself for now, the blonde Jinchuriki asked the obvious, a nun. Aren't you supposed to be like, enemies or whatever? This caused Issei's personality to do a near instantaneous 180, going from cheery to depressed, raincloud and all. I forgot about that. Naruto could only chuckle sheepishly as he half-heartedly patted the brunette on the back. I am sure it won't cause any problems or anything, right? I forbid you from seeing her or going anywhere near that church again. From what was quickly becoming his spot on the windowsill, Naruto scratched the back of his head. Huh. Guess I was wrong after all. Ignoring the elder teen, Issei directed a hurt and confused gaze at his king who had just flat out forbidden him from seeing someone who wouldn't harm a fly. What? Why? Why can't I see her? Shaking her head, Rias answered from behind her desk, you have to understand, she's a member of the church and you are now a devil, it just wouldn't work out. Going from confused to angry, the Gremory heiress talking down to him like he was a child not helping in the regard, Issei rose from his seated position, moving to stand in front of Rias' desk. What do you mean? Asia is the most harmless and innocent person I've ever met. What's so wrong with us being friends? Taking a much more stern look, Rias refused to budge and stood her ground. People like her work to exterminate us, Issei. There is no way two ways about it. Devils and those of the church have been enemies for centuries. It has nothing to do with who she is. But what she is. Sighing, the busty teen's expression softened. I am sorry, Issei. But I am doing this for your own good. As your king, it's my job to make sure you're safe, okay? While he wasn't a fan of the idea, Issei could at least see the sincerity that his leader was showing and grudgingly nodded his head. Hi, I apologize for my outburst. Without a word more, the young teen turned and left the room, leaving the room's occupants slightly tense. Of course, Naruto wasn't exactly one for such situations. Well, that could have gone better. Giggling at the blonde's casual disregard for tact, Akeno replied, Oh. And how would you have handled it, Naruto-kun? Not putting much thought into it, the dimensionally displaced shinobi shrugged. I would have let him do whatever, he's a big boy and can handle himself. Frowning, Rias interjected, as much as I would like to do that, I can't, as both the heiress to a well-known clan and partial guardian of this district. I have to make sure neither me or my peerage do anything that could cause an incident. Bah. That's why I never liked dealing with nobles or politics, too many rules and high society junk. Naruto waved off. Smiling at the teen's casual dismissal of the situation, Rias replied, and that's one of the things I admire about you, Uzumaki-kun. Being as mischievous as she was, Akeno couldn't help herself. Era, you wouldn't happen to be developing a crush on Naruto-kun, would you, bucko? Naruto's whiskered cheeks suddenly took on a much rosier hue than was normal as he nervously rubbed the back of his head. Likewise, Rias' alabaster cheeks lit up at the insinuation. Akeno. Putting a hand to her cheek, Akeno lamented, oh no. Bucko is trying to steal my Naruto-kun from me. Rolling with the overly dramatic act, the raven-haired beauty threw her arms around the still blushing blonde, forcing his head into her chest. I won't let you have him, bucko. Naruto, for his part, finally managed to regain some form of cognitive thought and began to flail his arms around, both because he was extremely embarrassed by his current position as well as the fact that he was finding himself running low on oxygen. Not wanting to die via breasts, the Konoha shinobi formed a quick hand seal, performing one of the basic 3, kawarimi. Gulping in some much-needed air, Naruto ignored the pout on Akeno's face as she found herself now hugging one of the throw pillows that occupied the room. As Rias regained her own bearings, she found herself pondering a question that had been bugging her for quite some time. Having known Akeno since they were children, she knew that the Ravenet liked to mess with people, but that was usually after she got to know them well enough and was somewhat comfortable with them. From the way she acted and even addressed Naruto, it seemed like her queen had known the goofy teen for quite some time. How this had happened without Rias' knowledge or without Akeno mentioning it herself was peculiar. Turning her gaze to a giggling Akeno, the devil heiress suddenly asked, "How long have you two known each other?" Tapping her index finger on her chin, Akeno seemed to consider the answer. We met around the end of the last school year." Remembering the incident that had led to him befriending one of Kuo's great beauties, Naruto began to blush whilst attempting to sneak out of the room. Rias had to quirk an eyebrow at that. Not only had Naruto apparently managed to fool every supernatural being into thinking he was just some random teen, but he had managed to also keep a friendship with Akeno from becoming public knowledge despite the latter's popularity around Kuo. It was at this moment that both Kaneko and Kiba walked into the room, the young Nekosho already munching on a lollipop, breaking Rias of her train of thought. Turning her attention to the two, the Gremory heiress smiled. "Anyo. What's wrong, Akeno?" Kiba asked curiously, seeing the long-haired beauty pouting whilst looking out the window. Naruto-kun left. Akeno sighed. Rias was surprised to see that her friend was correct, the blonde somehow managing to have left without leaving a trace that he had even been there in the first place. However, she had other matters to attend to that concerned her peerage. For a moment, her mind strayed to thoughts of her pawn, worried what he was up to. Naruto allowed a frown to stretch across his features, his cerulean orbs flickering to and fro as he observed the situation he found himself in. Since the day had started, had had a terrible pit in his stomach, his instincts all but screaming at him that something horrible was going to happen. Looking at the blood that painted the walls of the home he was currently in, it was safe to say that there was reason for it. Knowing about the group of fallen angels as well as their ultimate plan, the blonde found himself putting his shinobi training and natural proclivity to stealth to use, keeping an eye on Issei and the adorable nun he had made friends with. For the most part it'd been a boring task, though he was slightly surprised to see the younger blonde use what he knew to be her sacred gear, something Azazel had called twilight healing. While he had never really been all that interested in the medical field, he knew plenty of kunoichi who had been and how deadly they were. After all, Tsunade, his mother figure, was arguably one of the most powerful kunoichi to walk the elemental countries and was as easily capable of shattering bones as she was at putting them back together. Even then, this young girl's sacred gear was equally capable of healing anything, possibly even better than Tsunade had been, and she was several decades younger than the Godem. Other than that, it had been a rather uneventful couple of days. That was until he followed Issei to the site of one of his requests, feeling the presence of two others, one being the young nun. Naruto knew something was amiss. Watching from the shadows of the room, Naruto saw exactly what that was. A white-haired teen, freed Selzen from his own admission, had butchered the owner of the home, the one who had requested Issei's assistance. While he wasn't exactly privy to every minute detail, Naruto knew well enough from Rias and Azazel that relations between devils, members of the church, and fallen was not exactly the best. However, it seemed that thanks to some treaty or something, the three factions were at an unsteady ceasefire. This freed character clearly cared for none of that, cursing up a storm that would have made Enko blush as he announced his love of murdering anything related to filthy devils. It took all of his monstrous willpower for Naruto not to rush out and slam an Odama Rasengan straight into the vile teen, erasing such a horrid being from history. The way he spoke and even moved reminded the blonde all too much of Orochimaru and his own twisted way of speaking that just sent shivers down one's spine. Even then, the snake Sennin was a monster, of that there was no doubt, but even he had his motivations, as sick and macabre as they were. Freed seemed to enjoy murder and its gore for the sake of it. Watching the much weaker Issei attempt to take on the psychotic priest, Naruto grimaced. Even when the reincarnated devil teen summoned up his sacred gear, a crimson gauntlet that he had finally managed to gain use of after much pushing from Rias, the brunette was far too untrained to put up much a fight. The arrival of Asia sent the already terrible situation further south. Seeing how close the two were, Freed had no qualms putting his blade to his supposed comrade's throat, which ignited a fury in Issei. Seeing the crazed look in Freed's eyes, the terrified one in the young Asia, and Issei's wounded state, Naruto decided he was done playing bystander. He was not about to let an innocent girl be harmed if he could help it. Too absorbed in his own sick pleasure, Freed noticed too late the glint of steel as it flashed in the light of the candle-lit room. Wide-eyed, the white-haired priest let loose a stream of curses as he found a rather large knife lodged in the front of his thigh, blood pouring from the wound. Before he or any of the other two could comprehend what was happening, Freed was forced away from Asia when a figure plowed its foot into the murderous priest's face. sending him crashing into a nearby table with enough force to splinter it. Naruto-senpai! Issei cried, shocked to see his blonde-haired schoolmate standing where Freed had. Turning. The whiskered teen ignored Issei for the moment, sending a warm smile at the younger blonde, Asia right. Getting a meek nod in response, Naruto only smiled wider. You're safe now, can you do me a favor though and heal that baka over there while I take care of the trash? Asia, somehow feeling as if a warm blanket had covered her, nodded and stepped over to Issei, using her own sacred gear to heal the wounds Freed had inflicted on the brunette. Gaw. What the fuck was that? Who the shit interrupted me like that? Freed howled, rising from the remnants of the now destroyed coffee table, seeing the blue-eyed teen staring him down with a frosty glare. The white-haired teen sneered, TCH, piece of shit. Guess you want to end up like your friend over there, huh? Narrowing his eyes, Naruto refused to allow himself to rise to Freed's antagonizing, instead opting to deliver a vicious right hook into the psychopath's cheek. Before the Jinchuriki could continue his beat down, a familiar set of runes appeared nearby. From the hovering circle came the members of the Occult Research Club, or more accurately, Rias and the rest of her peerage. Era, what a surprise to see you here, Naruto-kun, Akeno smiled. Well shit. Now it's a whole gangbang. Naruto snarled at the rising form of Freed. Stumbling backwards, the priest was just barely able to avoid a dropkick from Naruto. He and the others were surprised though when the kick continued on its downward swing, impacting with wood in the floors with enough force to completely shatter the floorboards, sending up a shower of splinters. Hopping backwards, Naruto avoided a wide swing from Freed's blade but was not so quick to avoid the following holy bullet that burrowed its way into his bicep. Frowning at seeing blood begin to coat the arm of Naruto's uniform, Akeno whipped up her hand, summoning a wicked bolt of lightning. Cackling, Freed dodged out of the way. Oh fuck. I think I am in love. If you keep looking at me with those eyes I won't be able to hold myself back. Ha ha ha. While she was disgusted by the exorcist, Akeno couldn't help but grind her thighs together as she turned to see Naruto's normally warm oceanic orbs turn into twin tundras that promised pain and a lot of it. Freed Selzen had no idea that he had just angered Naruto Uzumaki, Sage, and Jinchuriki to the force of nature that was the Kyuubi no Kitsune. He, as well as Rias and her peerage, were about to witness why that was not at all good for one's health. Thanks for watching.